So I think I'd like to start, of course, with ALGON, which is the umbrella body for the local government areas in Nigeria. So I would like to start with the Honorable. ALGON is in court to seek the denunciation of the Supreme Court ruling on direct allocation to LGAs. And I find that an irony. Your Supreme Court has given you a ruling. You are going back again to the courts to ensure implementation. What is the status of implementation of the landmark decision by the highest court of the land? And why do you think that going to courts is the way out? Quickly. And let me also say that it would be nice for us to answer very briefly because we have less than an hour for this session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I sit here to represent the national president. ALGON would have wished to be here, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. So I will just try to respond on behalf of the president and indeed our. First, I'd like to say clearly that ALGON is not in court. We couldn't have gone to court because had been issue, we never went to court. The federal government went to court and got judgment. The federal government is in custody of the funds. And of course, the federal government is actually supposed to be the one to implement the Supreme Court ruling. So as to the status of implementation, after the judgment, the federal government, in its wisdom, decided to inaugurate a presidential implementation committee where ALGON is also a member, the NUT, the NOLGIP, the NGF, Governors Forum, and other Ministry of Finance and other critical ministry as to the matter were members of the committee. And as at that committee level, a lot of issues came up as to implementation, as to issues that has to do with primary education, health, and other critical service at the whole government. You recall that in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it clearly states that the local government will participate in education. It does not clearly stipulate the level of participation, but at ALGON level and as local government, we're fully in charge of payment of 100% salary of our workforce. And of course, we also provide infrastructure at the local government level. The UBEC through ZUBEC also make intervention to the local government. So those issues came up. The union too also raised some concerns as to regards from payment of their workers' salaries. So a subcommittee was further constituted at that level to reconcile those areas, which were promptly reconciled. ALGON agreed to almost all the terms of implementation. And as we speak today, we have signed off for implementation since last year. And there were conversations about opening account with CBN. We have met with CBN and streamline all that is needed. You recall that the local government is an entity or government created by the Constitution of the Federal Republic. So there won't be any issues as to opening account because it's not a private account that you subject a lot of. So there are basically at our end, we are ready. ALGON has also taken steps to also prepare her members in terms of training, in terms of budgeting issues, in terms of accountability issues, and all of that. So at our level at ALGON, we are indeed very ready, but I'd like to also quickly say that ALGON remains indebted to Nigerians and organizations like Agora who have always put this issue on the fore. And to say that this conversation is not about local government administrators, it is about Nigerians and the development of our communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Let me come over to the Honorable Commissioner who joins us virtually. The Supreme Court's ruling on direct LGA allocations seem very clear-cut and straightforward. Yet the implementation has been anything but straightforward. From your vantage point, I'd like to know why this is the case. And are states opposed to financial autonomy for local government areas? Or are there deeper administrative as well as political complexities at play that we might not know and would like to understand? Over to you, Mr. Oyebode.
So thanks very much, Nancy. I think uh, as before it we Agora for bringing dialogue together. Chris Coppens of the Canadian skills myself. Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. So I think very important to get the first is there's section 152 of the Constitution. And that section provides for Jack, right? And so there needs to be some clarity as to what does that do to the state of it to maintain a special account called the State Joint Local Government Account, into which shall be paid all applications to be put on. And so going to do that, and be sure that we're operating in line with Constitution. I think on the administrative side, there are a few things to be considered. For me, the primary issue has always been how the local governments pay their obligations. As of if you were, because again, we've put the cart before the horse. In my opinion, I think what we should have to first was to have first even agreed, done a census, right? Review the revenue sharing formula, both horizontal and vertical, right? And then we can have a full implementation strategy of payments to local governments. As we have it today, there are many local councils able to pay their salaries if they have allocations sent directly to them, because the indices for distribution have not been updated and do not reflect the burden of governance that those local councils carry. So I think for me, my first real point here is states are not opposed to autonomy. In my state in Ekiti, we actually augment local governments on a monthly basis. And that's apart from the 10% of IGR that goes to the Jack account, as prescribed by the Constitution. So I think it's presumptuous to say, governors of states are opposed to local government autonomy. I think there are deeper issues that we haven't resolved. Issues around even the fiscal stability of the local councils, right? Why have we put the cart before the horse? Why haven't we said, let's focus on reviewing the vertical and horizontal formula for revenue distribution? You have local councils today who can pay their salaries. You have obligations on universal basic education. If you are going to change the financial administration process, you need to go back to things like the UBEC Act and say, how do we deal directly with local governments if we don't want states to intervene in the process? The rep of the ALGON chairman has said here as well that, look, there are issues around basic education, primary healthcare, where there's no clarity as to who does what. Right? The moment you decouple this completely, some of the indices that Debbie raised in her remarks, indices around maternal mortality, indices around vaccine coverage, etc. How do you then fund some of these? How do you ensure ongoing applications are funded? And that's the work I think the committee has been trying to do. But it's important to note that a lot of the resolutions post the Supreme Court judgments that have been implemented, and for example, one of the states today is in courts simply because the allocation to its local councils were stopped because, in the opinion of the Attorney General of the Federation, that state erred in conducting local government elections, and that election was seen as the termination of a validly elected local government. Of course, the state's counter opinion to that is there's a judgment that had terminated that LGA administration and the elections were in order. That matter is now before the Supreme Court. But in compliance with the earlier judgment of the Supreme Court, FAC had even stopped payments of LGA funds to that state. Now, as to whether you can open accounts with central bank or not, I think that's an administrative conversation, right? For me, I often wonder, central bank is bank of last resort to the federal government. I don't know to what extent central bank can manage relationships across 774 local governments or even 36 states. I don't see a reason why local government should be forced or mandated to open accounts with CBN. It should be on an individual basis. If we're talking about autonomy, then also ALGON cannot say to 774 local governments who are open accounts in CBN. But local governments in the poly should reserve the right to band with whoever it wants, as is most local governments across the country. So I think it's just the contract. It's some of these things, even when we're discussing, we see that our understanding of it has contradictions. And as the Honorable Minister has said, this is a journey. I we started that journey. I think we made significant progress, and would have been that progress if there was no collaboration between the states and the federal government. So for us, it's really about ensuring that there's real fiscal federalism, and but more importantly, that all the unintended consequences of this should first be resolved before we can implement this suit. And again, just a last point, I mean, even if the Supreme Court has it's within anyone's rights to go back to the court to say we want it. Whether it's not ALGON or not, I bet so the incorporated trustees of ALGON, which is unknown to us in any event, and we have made a submission, as subnationals in that matter. So that matter today is sub judice. So there's not much one can say. And we'll wait for the Supreme Court to resolve what we are doing there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oyebode. Of course, you've raised a few sticky issues here, which I think would require response. And that response may also come from the ALGON National President's representative. So just hold that, sir. I'll come back to you in a bit because you've said a lot of things. But let me move over to Samson. As a lawyer and a democracy advocate, and perhaps even you listening to what Mr. Oyebode has just said, what are the implications for a country, failing to enforce a direct ruling by its highest courts? Specifically, how do you interpret, of course, the ruling second dimension, that LGAs must be governed by democratically elected officials? And what's your assessment of the elections held since? Because I think for organizations such as yours, you've called it shambles, or perhaps is it a step forward? And I'll also like it perhaps in a few seconds to respond to Mr. Oyebode's submission, because I was monitoring your body language when he was speaking, so you could respond to that quickly.
Well, thank you very much. Quite a handful of questions. But first, let me thank Oga Waziri for this meeting and this discussion. So let me attempt 3 of those questions that you had. So I think first, we're a constitutional democracy. And in a constitutional democracy, judicial review is a cardinal principle that ensures the rule of law and ensures that, this settlement that we have agreed, which is enshrined in our constitution, is respected. And so if the Supreme Court of the land has delivered a ruling on a particular matter, it behoves on other agencies of state to comply. And there's no reason why they shouldn't comply with the ruling of the Supreme Court, because failure to do so is a manifestation of democratic erosion. And it clearly demonstrates that we have no regard, for the rule of law. Because when scholars like Max Weber and co talk about the rule of law, is that everybody is subject to the rule of law. So if the court has decided, I expect that the institutions should, but it's just the level of impunity that, permeates every aspect of our national life. To the second question about the elections, I don't know if the slides can be up just to respond to this. So if you look at, how many states had democratically elected administration before the Supreme Court, there were only 14 states that had democratically elected local councils, only 14 out of 36 and the FCT. After the Supreme Court, let's go to the next slide. if you see the entire country went green because all the other states rushed to conduct local government election. In fact, in 2024, we classified the month of October as the super month of local government elections in the country because all the local government, all the states rushed to conduct elections. But the question is not in the conduct of the elections, it's the quality of the elections. And as at last year and up to the Lagos elections, it was our conclusion at Yiaga Africa that all those elections were a travesty of electoral democracy and they don't meet the electoral integrity test. There were three major things that characterized those. What we saw was allocation of votes in most of those elections, that the CX and their officials would sit and just allocate votes. And in actually most of the states, and Professor Remy is here, who we've been working closely with, in most of the states, the ruling party in the states swept all, the seats. In the recent local Lagos elections, it was the APC that took all the seats. And in the for the cow wards, out of 374, there was only one seat, 376, yes, there was only one seat that the opposition actually took. So when you look at those elections, they were a travesty in their own respect. The second point was that there was non-compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act is very clear that local government elections shall be bound by the procedure established in the Act for the conduct of area councils in the FCT. That's what Section 150 said. It was an attempt by the National Assembly to reform and strengthen the quality of elections at the local government level. But there was debate as to whether the National Assembly has the constitutional competence to legislate on local government elections. It does have. So if you take a case like Lagos, when they conducted the elections, it was just 14 days to the end of the tenure of the incumbent. In fact, that act itself, it's illegal. Because if you follow the time frame established by the Constitution, it says elections shall hold not earlier than 150 days and not later than 30 days. There's a reason why 30 days is put as the upper limit, so that in the event of runoffs, where maybe there's a national disaster, natural disaster, there's actually time. But they went ahead, conducted the elections despite attempt to draw their attention that they were flouting provisions of the Electoral Act. So you see that level of impunity. And lastly, and Professor Yemi mentioned, is what does local government mean to the governors? Which is where I deviate to a large extent with my brother Akina, which is where I'll land. I think that the governors continue to approach this discussion as an attempt to assert their control over local governments. They see local governments as a political tool, and that's why they are not willing to have conversations about what is necessary for ensuring that there's some level of independence at the local government level.
Thank you very much, Samson. Deep, really food for thoughts there. And as we go on, we'll definitely look at that. But let me come over to Hajiya Mahdi. It's always said, and we've said it here repeatedly this morning, that democracy begins at the grassroots. And in Nigeria, of course, the grassroots are the municipals or the local government areas. Yet this local government suffers from the chronic underrepresentation of women, of youth, and other marginalized groups. From your extensive work at WRAPA, what's your assessment of inclusion in local governance, and what concrete steps are needed to close those equity gaps?
Thank you, Nancy, and please forgive my voice. I have a very bad cold. I want to also join Samson and others in thanking Agora Policy for this conversation, and most importantly for thinking that there is a niche that's so important in terms of the understanding and the perception of what reforms even mean. The reforms around the fiscal autonomy of local governments, the reforms around our elections, the integrity that defines our elections, compliance with the rule of law all come down to two things in my humble view and in the work we have seen. We take it from the angle of two issues. First is citizen voices. Why do we concentrate on citizen voices? Because it is within that ambit that then you speak of inclusive democracy. It's not about just the electoral act, but who is in the game? What agency do they bring to the credibility, or what agency do they exercise over the outcomes of our elections? Second is about who calls the shots within political parties. Because all elections happen within the ambit of your belonging to a political party or something. Organizations as people are now want to see happening in the country. Now, who is in the political party and controlling the shots? For us, women in both cases have taken a bit of a rough shot, which every attempt is being made to address. The other thing that I want to attach to voices is when you come to elections, on election days, it's a given. Women defy rings, defy everything. Women have gone to labor rooms from election centers to put to bed and come back and elect. So is there a payback for you as a citizen and being a woman or a vulnerable person? We've had persons with disabilities who have been disenfranchised because they cannot access polling stations or polling points, and their voices are, of course, and those of others marginalized. So when you bring this and apply it to the issue of local governance and the fiscal, the court ruling, we celebrate as the underdogs of those communities. Because probably what it says to us, or perception, and I bring you also the results from WRAPA's research 2024, where we went out to check how are people relating with the reforms around local governance and seeing where they fall. Because in every policy, in every law, you must be able to locate yourself. Where am I in it? What do I benefit? What do I contribute? And the perception we got was 51% of Nigerians had limited knowledge of even the concern to participate. And it became higher when we applied it to women and persons with disabilities. It came to 66%, meaning that we need to even make people aware what are reforms, what are their benefits, what roles do we play. And I like what was said earlier this morning, the clarity of roles. So women, other vulnerable persons, and marginalized groups need to understand what are the roles they play, what is the benefit they bring to the table, and how do we do that? Where does it start? It starts from the policy formulation and then into the implementation. How many Nigerians, I don't recall, we had a conversation around this. What can we do to even determine the views of Nigerians concerning the pushback from the state governors and the role of ALGON, which is again something else that needs discussion with all due respect. But the point is this: we must find a way. Now, a clarity of what we're even talking about is good. Now, just to put it in practical terms, when we say voices and who is in control when it comes to the elections and who decides really how because we have been talking in this room, talking about a structure of implementation, speaking to roles and responsibilities. But how do you determine that without the voices of the people? And if that is to happen, who needs to play? One of the things we think should be pushing is that local government election. We need to even look at it. Is it going to remain what it is? Or because of the financing, the capacity deficit, the trust deficits and everything, do we need to even think of how to do local government elections all over? Different from maybe what we are doing at state and local, because the voices of the people matter. And for that reason, we in WRAPA and other civil society organizations have put our weight, one, behind increasing the numbers of women in terms of playing a role in how policies are shaped and in the role we play in governance. Two, we are also concerned and we are working in terms of drilling down so that the voices at the level of local government understand what is going to happen. So there is more work to be done. One, to get knowledge. Two, to get buy-in. And three, to close the trust deficit gap that is informing the lack of knowledge or the lack of interest. Because there's apathy. People are saying, they will just come and do what they are used to doing. At the end of the month, they open the room, toss the table, and divide the money. But that's not it. This ruling does not want that. That ruling gives power to the people, and their voices and their inputs matter. And we have to find a way to capture their voices, to get them to contribute, and to also hold those elected officers accountable. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you very much now. Dr. Yakubu, your organization has been at the forefront of working with ICPC and other institutions to enhance transparency and accountability in local government areas. Madam Mahdi just raised an important question, calling even the character of ALGON to question. So the ALGON rep here has a lot to answer for. I would like you to also take a look at that in that context, because what she also called for is around the accountability and transparency of that system, which we also call ALGON. Why is the initiative that you're pursuing timely? And what exactly are you doing to shift the culture of opacity in this crucial tier of government? It was also raised there. I think it was Samson that said, it depends on who the governor wants. If you're a local government chair and you're against the governor, definitely you will not turn back. And Mr. Oyebode is still on this call, so I also like you to answer that when I come back to you. But over to you, Dr. Yakubu.
All right, thank you. That's about 3 questions you just asked me now, and I don't know how many minutes I have. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you for organizing this program at Program.
Please, can you put all your mic again?
Is it on now? Okay. Thank you for inviting me. That's a bunch of about 3 questions you are asking. I'm sure I have like just 3 minutes, so I'll try to bunch up of them up. First of all, at the center, we recognize we're Nigeria, so we recognize that we know our problems. And transparency has been shown as a better tool for corruption prevention rather than all the running around after the corruption has happened. Also, it's well documented what goes on at the local government level, as they said today so many times, about how the state governors or the political actors have hijacked the local governments. But from one of the keynote speakers earlier on for the British High Commission, she made 5 points. Our point number 4 was on strong safeguards for transparency and accountability. Somehow that is what we have done as a center civil society, but because of our nature, we needed some form of enforcement power, which is why we partnered with the ICBC. We led Mr. Bakri, is seated right there representing the chairman, where we developed a framework across 5 thematic areas. Basically, in a nutshell, because it will take a long time, fiscal transparency. Somebody from the World Bank I heard us speaking about the kind of debt they go to borrow from public institutions, from banks. All this has have to happen. But before the methodology, the spirit
Recording stopped.
The spirit behind the methodology is we have made several commitments to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, the Open Government Platform, to so many to our constitution say we should combat corruption. We have the Freedom of Information Act. We have so many things. So we drew these principles by law that were mandated to have this information in the public domain proactively. And need that law to also support this. Or if you follow the law, they will tell you to commission the newspapers where they don't know, but not everybody reads newspapers. So we're banking on the legal law to say publish on your websites, because every public institution should have a website. And these categories of information, 29 indicators in number, should be on your website proactively by law, international commitments and national laws. So under fiscal transparency, we have about 9 sub-variables. Your budget, how much you are allocated, how much you generated, how much you spend on recurrent expenditure, how much you spend on capital expenditure, your debt level to the banks, your debt level to other organizations, you proactively disclose. So once you do it, is you find out that those are the areas where you see all those discrepancies. The next variable will ask for open procurement, because 73% of public sector corruption is procurement. So publish all your details of the advertisements, publish all the details of the contractors who are those doing contracts, and this is being done at the federal level and the state level. Then the last one, your procurement implementation report. We don't want to be seeing every year you're buying ACs, buying cars, ACs are cars, ACs are cars, because there's nobody checking all these things. And that is what we even brought in the ICPC to look at. The third variable we looked at is the human resources, which Auntie would enjoy is and the other focus. You publish information on your sex distribution, how many male you have, how many female we have, because there's a bit of discrepancy. Of course, we know that's the area too. We have what they call ghost workers. Sometimes they just put numbers up in people's salaries to know how many people they have. So once you have that, your sex distribution and people with disability, that's another point, because there's a law, our disability act is 5%, then they must publish that too. So the citizens engagement, town hall meetings. I'm wrapping up. Then publication of annual report. And the final one is your control of corruption implementation report. You can have all the policies you have, but you must have a mechanism that how you are controlling corruption regarding your audits, your everything, your policies, whistleblower, anti-corruption, anti-crime policy, and all these things should go actively in the public view. So for not publishing, the ICPC now will ask questions why you are not publishing these things, and they will do of course their powers or why you are not publishing and do what they need to do. Now, when you publish it now at the other area, that's a form of citizens engagement and feedback to citizens, and you'll see that they're equal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yakubu. All righty. I think it will be time. Let me come back to Mr. Oyebode. And this question is to you, at least to respond to some of the I don't want to say bullets, and I've come from Abuja over to you there in Ekiti. But you've said, of course, what you opined earlier, that states are not entirely opposed to local government reforms, but rather you are concerned about the current approach and the implications. Of course, you raised issues around YCBN accounts, the financial stability of LGAs. The question to you right now will be, what recalibrations might be necessary to make this autonomy both functional and sustainable? And I mentioned earlier on, and I think it was also Samson that said it, yeah, or is it even Dr. Yakubu now, that he who dictates, who plays the piper, dictates the tune. So if a governor does not like a local government chair, he going to remove her, and he will not see the light of day. So how do you respond to this? Very quickly, Mr. Oyebode.
Thanks, Nancy. So first, don't attempt to mediate it between scholars to take better. And my brother, I have to take him on his comments. I think first, there are a number of assumptions that, governors are opposed to this. Samson speaks about impunity. I wonder if he addresses that point too. The states are not the ones who implement prevents. The states have made their position clear. It's up to the country, to do what is best for it. I think our point has been around the things to think about, so that the entire nation doesn't ride to a halt. If we decide to go in a certain direction, so be it. As is primarily advisory, and to help manage some of the challenges that come from this implementation. I do not. My skill set is in finance. I do not pretend to be a political scientist. So those who monitor elections are better suited to speak on the electoral process and how to improve that process. But the truth of the matter, to just respond to you directly, is that elections are all politics is local, right? So again, the local government chairman doesn't operate in isolation. He requires the active support of the states, to optimize the delivery of governance to the people. So it's in everybody's interest, even if you're in different political parties, to work harmoniously to the benefit of the people. If that is not the case, the people reserve the right to choose an alternative to govern or oversee their affairs. But there have been cases where local government chairmen have not been, I would say, aligned with their governors. And in some cases they survive. In some cases, where the election.
Mr. Oyebode, must they align with their governors? If you can hear me, must they align with their governors? Must local government council chair align with their governors? There is a difference of government. And they should have the autonomy.
I think that Nancy, you can also expand that conversation. I think the hunger is that it's a choice, right? It's not by fiat, right? There are governors who disagree with the president today. There are some who agree. And there are some that agree on certain issues and disagree on others. You know, people have different views on local government autonomy. In my state, for example, we've had council chairmen, even in other local governments, who came out publicly to disagree with the governor, right? So I don't think that there's any fiat that council chairman must be subjugated to governor's authority. No. But you then can't say that, and for me, the real issue is not even about some of these softer issues. I think the real question you ask is what can we do to accelerate this process? I think the first thing is, in my opinion, a review of the revenue distribution formula, both vertical and horizontal, because that is what solves the real problems. Even if you say local governments, here's your money, pay directly. I've given you the case of local governments today who can't even afford to pay salaries with their allocation. Now, how are those local governments going to survive? How are they going to support things like maximum mortality, vaccine coverage, basic primary education, etc.? So the real issue is, let's first solve the revenue distribution problem, right? Let's first conduct a census, know how many people live where, review the basis of distributing revenues, and ensure that these local governments, when they do have the full autonomy, do not suffer from a tyranny of unfunded mandates. I think that's, for me, the fundamental issue. I think right now we're still majoring a bit in the minds. So to answer you, the real thing we need to do today is to even review how our revenue is distributed, not just across the three tiers of government, but also even within the subnationals, right? In a state, how do you distribute revenues across local governments? How do you ensure that within what is available to that state, it is equitably distributed to allow local governments, execute on their mandates? I think for me, that's, if you ask me for one big thing that we need to think about, that's a conversation nobody's had. As to the improvement in the electoral system, there are constitutional reforms ongoing. That's already happening, right? And where we think that we want to strengthen political systems, whether through centrally conducted elections, whether through improvements in subnational elections, those are things that can be subjected to a constitutional reform. So my brother speaks about, the supremacy of the Constitution, right? As long as this is the Constitution that we operate under, then we have to abide by it. The solution to improving that is the process that is going ignored, and I hope that process comes to logical conclusion. So I think that's all I'll say on those questions. The questions around improving, the electoral process, I think there are people who are better suited, and I'm an actor in that process in any event. So I like to leave that to more independent panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oyebode. Okay, let me come over to Honorable Yaga. Of course, this is time for you to respond to the few things that have been said here. But most importantly, I also like you to address the issue that Hajiya raised here, the issue of weak capacity, weak accountability, actually, at the local level. And what practical steps is ALGON taking to build trust? Because she actually mentioned voter apathy. A lot of people are not interested because they believe that all of Funan are the same. Let me put it that way. So what is ALGON doing to build trust, enhance administrative competence, and perhaps reposition local governments as credible engines of grassroots development? Because you guys have a lot of work to do. I think you name streets, local government registration, all those stuff. You should be the one putting the portfolio in my own local government. I shouldn't be looking at Abuja for that.
Okay, thank you very much. I think first, before I answer that, let me not forget, let me respond to the Honorable Commissioner. I think we're mixing up things. Okay, we're discussing a judgment that was delivered by no less a court a year ago, and then there are issues of constitutional reviews and review also of our relevant laws. Now, the judgment we're talking about ordered for immediate implementation. And I do not think that any judgment of courts
desires any gestation period to be implemented, or desires that you seek approval of certain relevant stakeholders before you implement. So to correct some of the issues that have been raised, for us at the local government, we've been paying worker salaries 100%. And if there are local governments who are not doing that, probably they do not have access to their complete funding. So even without the direct funding, we've been doing that. And our obligations as regards primary health, education, and what have you, the local government has been doing that. I think the states, yes, we play a complementary role, we play a collaborative role. And I do not also want us to look at the issue of local government autonomy to mean that, oh, there is this desire to usurp the power of the state or any other level of governor. So I just want everybody in the room to understand that the local government has a capacity to cater for its obligations. And as to the issues raised by WRAPA, you can only access the local government, the capacity of the local government in terms of delivery of services, in terms of accountability, when they have access to their funding. Government is a function of funding. So at the moment, the local government does not have access to those funds. So you cannot be able to clearly say you have assessed the local government that does not have the capacity to do A, B, C, and B. So this is where we are at the moment. In the last NEC ALGON had, where the 36 state chairmen of ALGON were present, we made it a 2-day activity. First day, we engaged with development partners, civil society organizations, federal MDAs, and even state governments. I was amazed. Some of them were saying, oh, so we have competent people at the local government. The reason why we're not seeing results, it's because the local government is yet to have access to their funds. So this is where we are. And as to what we can do to improve the capacity of local administrators, since the judgment, we have engaged with, had an understanding with the ICPC and the EFCC. We had a lot of training with them on issues of fiscal accountability and transparency. You know that the local government chairmen do not have immunity. So it's easy for you to hold them to account. Not that you have to wait until after his 3-year term, or in some cases 4-year term, before they can be held to account. There are a lot of local government chairmen going to EFCC and ICPC on a daily basis to answer questions as regards fiscal accountability in their local government. So if there is any tier of government where you can expect accountability because they will be held to account because of lack of immunity, is the local government. So what ALGON is doing right now is to continue to build this capacity of the local administrators to ensure that when this fund starts coming, they are able to judiciously apply them in a manner. And for us at local government, capacity here is not about speaking grammar. It's about applying resources in a manner that can impact positively on the lives of the communities. So this is what we term as capacity at our level. And of course, what will address most of these things is the issues around electoral reforms. So we have made our submission to the Constitutional Review Committees of the National Assembly, both the House of Reps and the Senate, where we require that, we need a more independent electoral body, talking about either the federal INEC or an independent body that can conduct local government and give it a uniform term of 4 years, conduct uniform elections for all the local government councils in Nigeria. So by the time you do that,
communities will have the opportunity to decide who lists them. So we'll no longer be having this conversation around that, oh, the governor sits and pick whoever he wants. The governor has interest. Whoever conducts the election, the governor is at liberty to support whoever he wants. But when we have a more transparent electoral process, it gives every political platform the opportunity to participate and provides the platform for citizens at that level to also participate in electing their leaders.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, food for thought here, and over to you, Samson, especially with what he just ended with. So we should revisit the quality and credibility of local elections. The ongoing debate if the state independent electoral commissions should continue to conduct, or it should be INEC, or what he had just said now, a new body. And me as a finance person, what's coming to my mind is new bureaucracy again, you know. And in your view, why are local government elections so structurally problematic? And how do we fix that dysfunction? Very quickly.
Well, the moment Honorable Akala, the moment he said an independent body, I looked at him. Have you left us? Because the discussion has been that you don't need another body. You need to strengthen CX. So what is the problem with CX? The truth is, in the current constitution that we operate, the CX don't have operational and financial independence. In fact, the constitution says that the operations of CX shall be subject to the approval of the governor of a state. That's what the constitution says. Unlike INEC, where the constitution clearly says that the operational independence of INEC is guaranteed in the constitution and shall not be subject to the approval of the president. So the CX are not independent operationally. When you come to financial independence, INEC is funded from the consolidated revenue of the federation. If you go to the states, the CX are not funded from the state consolidated revenue fund. So the governor decides from government house if he chooses. And in most cases, as we've seen from the recent elections, is that the governors just choose not to fund the CX. And they wait until the 11th hour and they release little amount of funds. There are only one or two governors that have been exceptional, and I will not mention them for some reasons. But across board, it's the same case. So you need to guarantee the independence of CX. I personally, and we've had this discussion with Oga Waziri, and I think that's where we agree, that this tension between centralization and devolution of power is one big conversation we need to ask. How much more do we need to devolve and how much do we need to centralize? And I personally think that the states should be allowed, through constitutional reengineering, to guarantee the independence of CX. So we need to retain CX, but apply the same reforms that we applied for INEC, to the state electoral commissions. And for those of us who are in the room, majority of us here live in Abuja. I hope you are aware that the local government elections for Abuja will hold next year, February. And some of the discussions here, the only way they can matter and make any sense is if you get interested in what's happening in the FCT and the local government elections. Because you can't talk about low turnout in elections when we who are here, who perhaps are the most enlightened, are not participating in our local council elections. And it's going to be a very interesting election to watch. And you said, even if you conduct credible elections at the local government level, one of the things that we've seen is that some of the local government chairmen, even in the FCT, are also decamping to the party of the day. So there are no guarantees anyway. I think what is important is guarantee the independence of CX, get citizens interested in local governments, and also get them to participate after elections. So my charge to all of us who are in this space, especially those of us here, it will be remiss of me if I don't encourage us to participate in the next local government elections. Because as you see, some of the decisions that these guys are making impacts on you on a daily basis. So get involved. It's February next year, and I hope that we can, record at least 50% turnout of voters, because in the FCT we've never recorded 30%. And for the federal capital, where you have perhaps the most enlightened, very cosmopolitan in nature, I think it's disappointing if we don't show up to vote at the next local government elections.
Thank you, Samson. Now, let me take it from where Samson ended around the worrying trend of disengagement by citizens. And Hajiya, you raised that issue earlier on. There's even a more worrisome trend for me also, that civil society is, a bit absent from local governance. Many now focus solely on the federal government as well as the state. We are talking about Abuja, then the state, leaving local government areas in a kind of civic vacuum. So how can we re-energize citizen interest, like Samson just admonished all of us here in the room that we should all be interested? How can we energize that participation and oversight at the local level, so that Honorable Akala and his people will know that people are watching them, and not just the ICPC and EFCC, because they do not have immunity, even especially among women, because for women, we are, a force to move, yes, and other vulnerable groups quickly. Yeah.
Thank you, Nancy. And I just want to make 3 or 4 points about how to respond to this issue of probably a vacuum, as you say. Why most civil society organizations are maybe more present in the urban and in the federal level conversations is because, again, it comes back to apathy. What we would recommend, or rather what we recommend, is, first of all, we must fill that trust deficit. Government, especially at the local government, there is a big, wide trust deficit index. Civil society needs to make a deliberate effort and drill down, which is one of the things we have just put on trial. We have a pilot program that has worked in Anambra State, Nancy, looking at market governance, where we found that for the donkey years that we know the strength of women, Elijah's, whatever you call them in Lagos, the big women who run the markets, Lodges. Then in Igbo, in the southeast, look at how much trade is going on at the micro level, which women control, but they have no role in the leadership of markets. We've just put that to the test, and we have now gotten them to be given ex-official status in the governance of markets. For me, that is a starting point, because when you go to push people into doing something or demanding for accountability, they need to even understand, like I said earlier. So take the practical example of a midwife. Maybe that chairman or that chairperson of the local government was actually delivered by one of the most senior midwives in the society. And then she comes out and vies for councillorship. She's likely to win because the people know her, they trust her, and they respect her. So what we need to be able to do is to ensure that whatever reforms we bring to elections at the local governments connects it to people and the agency they bring to the lives and the livelihoods of the people they are within. The second thing we are looking at is, again, we need to press for political will. And political will is not just an issue of governance or government or government actors. No, political will means we, the people, again, agreeing that this is what we expect to see and this is what we will demand. So civil society needs to remain vigilant and continuously demanding for political will to be strengthened and to divulge those corners around which citizen agency is being deprived. The third one is citizen participation, which we have discussed actively here. But in doing that, it is very important that we still remain vigilant on what form of elections are happening at the local government. I respectfully agree with what you have said in terms of capacities. But like you said, capacity is not just about education. It is about that willpower for people to organize and collectively demand or provide inputs into governance. So we need to be able to help groups to organize and to also create knowledge and agency that helps them to demand for inclusion and accountability. Lastly, is how do we drill down? Because we're civil society organizations, we should have the capacity to move from the national to the state and to the local governments. At the local governments, we have CBOs, we have groups, we have everything. It is about us working with organizations of like minds in terms of policy reforms and in terms of advocacy to see how we involve. When you involve these people, they will be ready to be pushed into the arguments about how local government funds are spent, who spends them, and what roles they play in. So I believe overall, citizen engagement, voice, agency, and coordination. Thank you, Nancy.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Yakubu, you've painted a very good picture. You did that earlier, beyond naming, beyond shaming, beyond technology, beyond dashboards, beyond data, and all of that. What innovations or perhaps other institutional reforms do we need to get at the local government councils to ensure that they deliver better results, development-oriented for the people?
Okay. Hello? Maybe just one thing. If you notice, let's say just this hall, take a poll now and ask people how many of you know your local government chairman. I can predict it to be less than 20%. What's the allocation of your local government? You still find that it is very low. I don't know why we're obsessed with the federal government. There's this obsession. I don't know whether it's social media or what's driving it. But I think it's the political class. They have succeeded in their propaganda in diverting our attention more to the federal government, not knowing the cumulative of what goes to the state and local governments in total is about 50% or more than 50%. So all we need to do now, two things. More citizen engagement, like Mr. Samson just said. Now, the local government election, people don't even participate. When it's federal elections, we'll all run to our local governments wanted to vote the president, not knowing that is where what happens is at the grassroots. So we need to really improve all the data to demand for more accountability by being involved. Now, what I just told Oga Mazo and Ambassador Okafo just yesterday, I said, you people, members of the institute, members of the National Institute, they are retiring and not going back to the local governments to add value. Everybody retires to Abuja and Lagos, so there's low capacity there. Now, when somebody retires as a PAMSEC or as a retired AIG or as an ambassador and goes back to become a councillor, he's not looking for money, he's not looking for anything. The capacity he improve that local government will really elevate. So maybe we need to start pushing retirees because they are mostly, they have all the experience and the things to do. Everybody should go and run for councillor, not local government chairman, because the demand will be too much. Be a councillor to check whoever the local government chairman is at that time. I think these two things, if we try, will drive, improve the accountability mechanism of local government. Thanks.
All right, thank you. We just have a few more minutes for this one, perhaps 5 minutes. And while we have 5 minutes, let me just ask for your closing thoughts. And Mr. Oyebode, very quickly, like in 45 seconds, give us what your closing thoughts are.
Thanks, Nancy. I think first it's to ask the rep of the ALGON chairman when he says local governments don't get money. I wonder his own local government where he's chairman. Is he suggesting that someone is diverting the allocation? But I think now closing, for me, it's really we're all rowing in the same direction, right? We're all focused on the development of our country and providing opportunities to Nigerians, right? So it's for me an important debate. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. I think we're all partners in this collaboration. And as a representative of a subnational, ultimately, I come and I reside in a local government, and it's in my best interest for that local government to deliver optimal services to me as a resident. So I think for me, it's just to say there's no dichotomy. Governors or states are not opposed to better functioning local governments. We're all looking for how to optimize this, even if we have different ideas of achieving the same objective. Thank you very much.
Very much, Mr. Oyebode. Honorable, over to you, your final thoughts.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I think to just correct the impression, I didn't say anybody is diverting any funds. I only said the local government does not have direct funding at the moment. So the state joint account is still in force and is managed by the state government. So I think that should be very, very clear. And for us going forward, we're also trying to also improve in line with transparency. We're digitizing our processes, ensuring that local governments now have functional websites, and also improve in our capacity of budgeting. And now we have projects ongoing on unifying our processes of issuance of birth certificates, indigenization certificates, death certificates, and there are a lot of partnership going on between the local government and the federal government in the areas of primary health and primary education. So the local government is ready to continue to interface with civil society organization, non-governmental organization like the Agora, the Yiaga Africa, who have been very, very committed in ensuring that local government is back to life again in our country. So on behalf of the president, we register our profound gratitude for this conversation, and we pray that it yields the desired results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Samson, over to you.
Well, I'll just say three things. The first one, and it's to everyone here, is we're reflecting on 1 year after the Supreme Court judgment. There was a reason why the court delivered that judgment. And now, to maximize the gains of that judgment, it requires active citizenship. And my call and charge to you here is you reside in a local government. Please make the effort to care about how that government is governed and that local government is governed. It will cost you two things, your time and your resources. And I tell you, it is not too much a price to pay because the overall benefit outweighs, the cost that it comes to you. So please get interested. Whether you're in Amak, you're in Karo, you're in Abaji, you're in Gwagwalada, wherever you find yourself, please ask those difficult questions because democracy is about asking questions at the right time, directed to the right people. And lastly, please vote at the next local government elections. It's February next year. Please vote.
Yeah. Please make it louder if you want to clap. Thank you. All right, Hajiya, over to you.
Yes, the final word from women of Nigeria and the marginalized and vulnerable is that we welcome the reforms because for us it's a promise of hope that we will be able to enjoy better health services, better education for our children, and then also a good involvement in our capacities to contribute to governance. The other thing we would want to call attention to is the fact that we need more awareness. As it is, reform. In fact, it is English. I keep telling people that some of these things we need to decipher them into simple language and into local languages. Have we attempted to translate the court judgment? If we have not, can we do it so that we increase awareness? The more aware people are and the more they see the stake for them, either as input or benefit, the better for them to participate. So I'm calling on all of us to maybe put forces together, ensure that we drill down knowledge and we create appetite for participation in the reforms and in the elections that decide who governs us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Yakubu.
Okay, Shadow. Okay, mine is just that as we're advocating for more inclusion of women, more inclusion of youth, more inclusion to everybody should come and vote, we should also not forget that we'll have too many bad examples of the political class. So that as we're advocating for inclusion, participation, it should be involved with integrity. Don't look, that's why we have too many examples of you tell the youth to go and vie for political office. When they get to political office, they get to become worse than the people they have seen. Because what they have seen is visual.
They see people, he had nothing. When he got to political office now, he has one more wife, he has 2 more cars, he's flying abroad. That is what they are seeing. So we have to imbibe the issue of integrity. It's not just to vote. Why are you voted? It's not just to be included, because now people have managed to define inclusion as my own. What is my own? So that's just my take. Let's all participate. Let everyone be involved. But the culture of integrity is very valid for the service and not for the self. Thank you.
Okay, just before we come down, I would take a few interventions here. Perhaps we'll just take 3. We have less than 10 minutes to be done with this session. Yes, because time is fast spent already. We're supposed to have, I see a lot of hands up, but I'm just going to take 3. Okay, I'll take from the ICPC chairman rep here. Then I'll take the lady at the back. Then, please can we extend the mic? Let's start with the lady at the back first. No, sir, you will speak last. The lady at the back there. Then the third person, photographer, I'm not taking you. Can we have from this side too? So I'll take from that side, the man raising his hands up. At the end of the session, we can, network with people here and ask our questions because our time is fast spent. Okay, very quickly, your question or your intervention, introduce yourself.
Okay, good day, everyone. My name is Lady E. Ejiro Mokoro. I'm the publisher and CEO of Lightry Media. Incidentally, I'm also a fellow of the Agora policy. I want to go to Itodo. You know why? I'm going to merge it with what Madam said earlier on. We're talking about, look at the Badenoch syndrome that we're seeing. It's a reflection of how the supposedly highly educated, right, who ought to know better, are never involved in the process. You talked about impunity. It begs the question, is the Nigerian cultural psyche based on religion, based on the education we have, is it creating a society where our DNA actually enables the kind of impunity we have, where, like Oga rightly said at the end, you see young persons, they imitate that which they see. They know it's wrong. They know this is not the way, but they go. So the question I'm asking is, what kind of strategic campaigns, Madam mentioned earlier about the significance of language, using and deconstructing certain terminologies or words to get to the people. So it goes back to what kind of campaigns should we begin to design that we enable supposedly educated, learned people, because they form 50% of the persons who never go out to vote.
I think we've
do better.
Thank you. We've gotten that. The mic should move to the man over there. Please just be brief with your question or intervention.
Man, they're talking. Which man?
Your hand so that they will see and bring the mic to you. Yes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Iroka Chibueze Amos. I'm a concerned and interested Nigerian. Let that suffice for an introduction. Okay, so I just told the lady sitting beside me that the way the call for participation at the local government level came across this afternoon, that because I have never voted in the local government area, and I've been in this AMAC right from 2009. I've participated in the presidency and all those. I just told her that come February, I'm going to vote. Probably because of the way he just was presented.
That deserves an applause now. So,
Yes, probably because of the way it was presented to me. And I'm just asking myself, and by all means, I'm enlightened by God's grace. And at this level, I've not been voting. What about those people below? You can imagine. So it's not far from what my sister said. How do we pass this message to the people right from here down so that there will be this participation that we seek? What modalities, what platforms do we need to break? What do we do? Please, I think we need to concentrate on this. Whatever we want to achieve, if we get this, all of them will fall into places.
Thank you very much. So we're talking about grassroots engagement here. So the last, please bring him. Chair.
So thank you very much. Good day all. My name is Bele Idris Bakuli, the Local Government Initiative Division, Head of Local Government Initiative Division. I stand just to make some comments with regard to the reforms of local governments. I have a candid belief that now autonomy of local government is not effectively implemented in the country. So that is why we forwarded to be proactive in identifying financial flow of the local government funds from the federation account or to the individual local government accounts. But my critical observations, up to now, it's the state government that is frustrating this autonomy, to be frank. So that is why I recommended for the chairman now to go proactively. We designed 6 templates in ICPC, how to track local government funds from the federation account up to the local government individual account, up to the receiving end of the funds. But my sister, it is damn too frustrating. We have identified so many illicit financial flow. So far now, I will not tell you the state and the local governments. We recovered a substantial amount of the illicit financial flow for local governments. And what I'm advising now, more especially ALGON, I peruse your communique with that Presidential Implementation Committee with regard to the local government autonomy. I'm wondering, why did you be reluctant of accepting that recommendations from the trade unions for local governments, like NOLGA and other sister unions? In that recommendations, you said that the local government funds, let the union dues be deducted at source, and let the personnel cost of local governments be directly forwarded to the Local Government Service Commission. Local Government Service Commission is an extra ministerial department to the state government. Why the autonomy, if you said that? Why the autonomy? Which means there is no autonomy. Look, ALGON chairman, thank you very much, Dr. Saudatu, Dr. Yakubu. The way you are creating an effective synergy with us, with the ICPC, I'm sure, I am contented our chairman is encouraging us to track local government financial flow. But I'm advising you, ALGON, collaborate with the ICPC so that we can fight for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you for that intervention. All right, over to you, Samson and Hajiya, for the response around DNA, as well as if this corruption is active in the DO.
You mean to...
Let's hold on. How do you, Hajiya? Please, yes, there's a man that came from Mina for this event, so I think it's not worthy for us to take his intervention. You can come all the way and let's share what's happening in Niger State. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Barrister Alfa Muhammad. I'm chairman of Citizens' Rights and Judgment Enforcement Advocates. As some of you might have taken notice of a press statement, a launching of a campaign for the enforcement of the local government judgments at Mina about 10 days ago. The heading was Let the Local Government Breathe. We took that action because we discovered that the seriousness of poverty in the country and the insecurity we have in the land today is simply because the local government chairmen are not able to have access to their funds as required by constitution. So because of that, we decided to embark on that very campaign. And the two demands we only made to the local government, the governor, is that, number one, they should allow the local government chairman have direct access to their fund. And secondly, they should comply with the provision of the Electoral Act 2022 that provide 4 years for the local government councils so that they will be able to play their role as chief security officers of their various local government. You will agree with me that the economy of the local government today is dead. Many of the local government don't stay in the council area, go and stay in the capital because they have no fund to perform. Villages, market, many roads, construction, jobs that are available that empowers the local government, the grassroots people, are non-existent. So it's
Very much.
a request here that the NGOs, we should come together and see how we make these judgments enforcement a reality. Thank you very much.
See, over to you, Hajiya.
Okay, just to pick on the last speaker and our brother who has just been converted into NGO here. I think it goes down to what we're saying. Everything depends on how much do the citizens know about what this means to their lives and their livelihoods. So mobilization, education, sensitization, and advocacy remain. And nobody is well placed enough to do that better than civil society. And we need to ensure that the institutions and the local government structures are well engaged. So digestible language, which is what I spoke about, interpretation, even all the structures, all the templates that are being developed for accountability, we need to decipher them into something that people understand. When we have an NGO, like I think it's Code that has a program, Follow the Money, I think it's Code. Hamza was in the room some time ago. Now, what it means is they've been able to get local people to understand that there's a structure of allocation, there's a structure of spend, there's a structure of accountability, and there's a structure of impute. When the budgets are being formed, you can impute. When they are released, you can follow and see what is done with it to your life and your livelihood. So again, Nancy, citizen engagement, knowledge, and then digestible language that ensures people understand and they become converted like my brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just to add on that, I think with respect to campaigns, it's about what kind of narratives are we building around values and ethics. And we've got to continue the discussion about patriotism, that our country cannot develop if its people don't love the country. And I think those kinds of narrative are important. So when you're thinking about campaigns, in hacking the minds of people to think differently, we've got to emphasize these national values and ethics. The second is we need to amplify good examples. Often we look at our society and we think that there are no good examples and there are no good stories, because the mind is always receptive to bad stories, right? So we need to look at good examples, celebrate them, and use them as models of influencing behavioral patterns in society. And lastly, when people fail, they should pay for their sins. And this is where consequence actually comes in. And when they are paying for their sins, let us know that they are paying for their sins so that it serves as a deterrence to others. And to my brother, please, after this session, let's talk. Because we are very much interested in local elections. And it's even if you're the only convert here, I think, Mr. Waziri, you should celebrate that you've actually delivered. And I pray that others also see reasons. Please, I beg you, don't be discouraged by the challenges that we see within our society and think that it is not possible to get change. It is very possible. The same way folks in FCT voted, a female senator who is in the National Assembly, is the same way you can get a local government chairman of your choice. But don't make the mistake to think it starts and ends with the elections. After the election, That's when the real work of democracy begins.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause. What more can I say than we've had a very fantastic, stellar lineup of panelists that have brought out all the salient points that have been rehashed here. And I know that we've all imbibed, we've all taken it in. Just like Samson said, if we do not even go home with anything, we should go home that we should all engage, participate, and be interested in what happens at our local councils. I said earlier on that I'm from Anyocha North local government area in Delta State. They know me in my state. You know, even I was given a chieftaincy title in my village as the voice of the voiceless. You know, that's because they know that they have a watchdog, and if you do anyhow, you see anyhow. So I'm imploring all of you, everyone in the room, please let's all be engaged. And that's it. Please, a round of applause for our panelists. And I think I'll have to invite the people in front for a photograph now. Yes, I think we should have a photograph session. Madam Chair, yes, let's have a photograph session before we go over to the vote of thanks that will be given by the founder of Agora policy. Please, another round of applause.